Hi, for today's story I'm going to be reading a chapter from this book called The Other Hand by Chris Cleave. Serious times began on a grey, ominous day in London. I wasn't looking for serious. If I'm honest, I was looking for a bit of the other. Charlie was nearly 2 years old and I was emerging from the introverted, chrysalid stage of early motherhood. I fitted back into my favourite skirts. I felt like showing off my wings. I decided to spend a day in the field. The idea was to remind my editorial girls that it was possible to write a feature article all on one's own. I hoped that by inspiring the staff to indulge in a little reportage, my commissioning budget would be spared. It was simply a question I had told the office airily, of applying one's remarks sequentially to paper rather than scrawling them individually on sample boxes. Really, I just wanted my staff to be happy. At their age, I'd been fresh out of my journalism degree and intoxicated with the job, exposing corruption, brandishing truth. How well it had suited me, the absolute license to march up to evildoers and demand who, what, where, when and why. But now, standing in the lobby of the Home Office building in Marsham Street, waiting for a 10 o'clock interview, I realised I wasn't looking forward to it. Perhaps at 21, one is naturally curious about life, but at 30, simply suspicious of anyone who still has one. I clutched my brand new notepad and dictaphone in the hope that some of their youthful predisillusionment would rub off on me. I was angry with Andrew. I couldn't focus. I didn't even look at part of the reporter. My spiral notepad was virginal white. While I waited, I besmirched it with notes from a fictitious interview. Through the lobby of the Home Office building, the public sector shuffled past its scuffed shoes, balancing its morning coffee on cardboard carry trays. The women bulged out of M&S trouser suits, wattles wobbling and bangles clacking. The men seemed limp and hypoxic, half garrotted by their ties. Everyone stooped or scuttled or nervously ticked. They carried themselves like weather presenters, prepared to lower expectations for the bank holiday weekend. I tried to concentrate on the article I wanted to write. An optimistic piece was what I needed. Something bright and positive. Something absolutely unlike anything Andrew could write in his Times column, in other words. Andrew and I had been arguing. His copy was getting gloomier and gloomier. I think he had truly started to believe that Britain was sinking into the sea. Crime was spreading, schools were failing, immigration was creeping, and public morals were slipping. It seemed as if everything was seeping and sprawling and oozing, and I hated it. Now that Charlie was almost 2, and suppose I was looking into the future, my child would have to inhibit, and realising that bitching and about it might not possibly be the most constructive strategy. Why do you always have to be so negative? I asked Andrew. If the country really on a slide, then why not tell people who are doing something about it? Oh yeah, like whom? Well, like the Home Office, for example. They're the ones on the front line after all. Oh, that's genius, Sarah, that really is. Because people really trust the Home Office, don't they? And what would they call the fine uplifting piece? You mean that's my title? Well, how about the Battle for Britain? I know. Andrew exploded with laughter. We had a blazing row. I told him I was finally doing something constructive with the magazine. He told me I was finally growing out of the magazine's demographic. Not only I was getting old, in other words, but everything I'd worked on for the last decade was puerile. How almost surgically hurtful. I was still furious when I arrived at the Home Office building. Always the surreal girl, aren't you? That had been Andrew's parting shot. What exactly do you require the Home Office to do about this country, Sarah? Strafe the chavs with Spitfires. And Andrew had a gift for deepening the incisions he began. It wasn't our first row since Charlie was born, and he always did this at the end. Brought the argument back to my upbringing, which infuriated me, as it was the one thing I couldn't help. I stood in the lobby as the dowdy clerks followed all around me. I blinked, looked down at my shoes, and had my first sensible thought for days. I realised I hadn't come out into the world today to make a point to my editorial staff. Senior editors didn't really go back to reporting to shave a few pounds from their commissioning budgets. I was there, I realised, entirely to make a point to Andrew. And then Lawrence Osborne came down and introduced himself on the dot of 10 o'clock. Tall, grinning, not conspicuously handsome. I understood that the point I was making to Andrew was not necessarily going to be an editorial one. Lawrence looked down at his clipboard. "That's odd," he said. "They've marked down this interview as non-hostile." I realised I was looking at him fiercely. I blushed. "Oh God, I'm sorry. Bad morning. Don't mention it. Just tell me you'll try to be nice to me. All the journalists seem to have it in for us these days. I smiled. "I'm going to be nice to you. I think you people do a terrific job." That's because you haven't seen the statistics we've seen." I laughed, and Lawrence raised his eyebrows. "You think I'm joking," he said. His voice was flat and unremarkable. It didn't sound public school. There was a touch of roughness in his vowels, or a sense of some wildness reined in, and as if he was making an effort. It was hard to place his voice. He took me on a tour of the building. He looked in on the Assets Recovery Agency and the Criminals Record Bureau. The mood was businesslike, but relaxed. Discourage a little crime, drink a little coffee. That seemed to be the tone. We walked along unnatural galleries, floored with natural materials and bathed in natural light. "So, Lawrence," I said, "what do you think is going wrong with Britain?" Lawrence stopped and turned. His face glowed in a soft yellow ray, filtered through coloured glass. "You're asking the wrong man," he said. "If I knew the answer to that, I'd fix it. Isn't that what you're supposed to do at the Home Office? Fix it? I don't actually work in any of the departments. They tried me out here and there for a while, but I don't think my heart was in it. So here I am in the press office. But surely you must have an opinion." Lawrence sighed. "Everyone has an opinion, don't they? Maybe that's what's wrong with the country." "What? Why are you smiling?" "I wish you'd tell that to my husband. He has opinions, doesn't he? On a variety of subjects. Well, maybe he should work here. They love a policy debate about these parts, they really do. Your first interview, for example." Lawrence looked at his clipboard, searching for a name. "I'm sorry," I said. "I thought you were my interview." Lawrence looked up. No, I'm just the warm-up guy." "I'm sorry, I should have explained." "Oh, well, don't look so disappointed. I'm fixed up for a good day for you, I really have. You've got 3 heads of department lined up and a real live permanent under-secretary. I'm sure they'll give you more than you need for your piece." I must say, I've quite enjoyed reading that. Although at the moment, I'm going to stop reading any more of that chapter because it's raining. I don't know if you can hear it, but I'm starting to get quite wet. I'm a little bit concerned about the camera and the microphone equipment that I've got. So I hope you enjoyed this chapter from this story, The Other Hand by Chris Cleave. Would appreciate it if you give me a thumbs up, click subscribe, leave any comments on the video. And if you've got any other stories or poems or anything else you'd like me to read, leave it in comments below. Thanks for joining me today.